Welcome back to part 5 and the finale of our SeaTac-inspired airport build here in City Skylines 2. We've come a long way from the first runways and terminals, and in this episode we're pulling everything together with the last major pieces of the project. First and foremost, we'll be building out the rental car lots, giving passengers somewhere to actually pick up their wheels once they land. No airport is complete without this, and it takes the immersion on this build to a whole new level. From there, we're finally tackling the empty land next to the airport, which is something I've been excited about doing ever since the start. No airport exists in a vacuum, and this little town we're about to slap in there will add contact, services, and an extra sense of life in the surrounding area. And of course, we'll be finishing out all the last rounds of detailing, all the polishing, everything that ties us together. Signs, props, landscaping, finishing touches, all those things that take this build from looking good to feeling complete. This has been one of my favorite projects to work on in City Skylines 2, and I'm just so excited to share this last step of the journey with you. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for taking this ride with me. It's been an absolute blast putting this together with you. And with that being said, let's dive into this finale. So we're starting things off here with the rental car lots. I decided to build out 2 of them, one for Avis and the other one for Sixt. Avis is the smaller of the 2, but I still try to capture the size and layout they'd realistically have in a major airport. The focus here was variety, not just rows of the same car copy and pasted, but a proper mix to make it feel like a working rental lot. I added in different vehicle types, some subtle detailing, and of course plenty of lighting so the area looks alive at both day and night. And to make it feel even more functional and up the realism a little bit, I dropped in a small service center for those companies as well. Because even in City Skylines, those cars got to get checked and cleaned up somewhere. For the signage on both of the lots, I set those up off camera using Right Everywhere. Each sign was customized to fit the lots properly so the entrances look branded and polished without bogging down the video with every step of the process. I've gone over those a couple times already in my previous videos, so you can always check back on those if you want to see a more detailed version. Plus, there's probably going to be some of those coming up at some point today anyway. Between the 2 lots, I carved out a small cell phone waiting area as well, which is something almost every real airport has. It's one of those spots where people hang out and wait until their friends or family land, and it felt essential to include in the build. To finish it off, I added in a little waiting area with vendors selling refreshments just to give the space some more character and life. Details like this really round out the airport and make it feel like a complete system, and I was really pleased with how it turned out, especially sitting underneath the light rail line. It feels like a very realistic and natural spot, and that's exactly the vibe I was going for. Now with this build in particular, there is quite a bit of ground to cover, so go ahead and just kick back, enjoy the chill music, and we'll catch back up in a little bit. kick off the town build, I started with the basics, clearing and terraforming the land to get a clean slate to work with. This gave me a chance to smooth out the terrain, carve in some more natural looking hill, and make sure the layout felt like something that could exist just outside of a major airport. From there, I'm going to be moving on to the road layout, and instead of sticking with the basic grid, I wanted the roads to feel a little bit more organic, like they were built around the land rather than forcing the land into a rigid shape. This approach also leaves room for some more natural expansion zones between the town and the future commercial district. This way everything feels like it flows more naturally together instead of like one big boxed in area. begin filling in the town itself, I'm going to start by placing some of the main service buildings like fire, police, healthcare, and education. And then for housing, I'm going to utilize a mixture of low, medium, and high density homes. I didn't really want this to feel like some sort of cookie cutter suburb, so the variety really helped sell the idea that the town grew naturally around the airport. Plus, it breaks things up visually. Not everyone wants to live in a shoebox, but hey, some people like that. So I realized that I really needed to redo this stretch of highway and give this side of the town access to it. Otherwise, the traffic congestion at the airport entrance would just be horrendous. So I went back and redid the main connection so it flows more naturally. And to handle the traffic, I'll be dropping in a basic trumpet interchange for the exits and entrances here. Nothing too wild, just clean and functional. Honestly, after wrestling with the spaghetti interchanges earlier in the series, keeping this one simple was a blessing. Sometimes just a little trumpet is all you need. main section of town is focused on the commercial side. I added in a variety of hotels to capture that feeling you see around almost every airport. You know what I'm talking about, where travelers can rest for the night, grab a bite to eat, or just kill some time during a layover. It's one of those little touches that make the area feel alive, and it helps serve a real purpose in the build. Now, sticking with the vibe of hotels, I also wanted to drop in a couple of custom hotels to give this town some extra character. The first one here is an Embassy Suites, but instead of making it look shiny and brand new, I leaned into giving it more of a slightly run-down vibe. You know, the type that's still perfectly fine to stay in, but maybe you're not touching the carpet barefoot. The second one I'm going to do is at the other end of the spectrum. It's a much more luxurious chateau-style hotel that feels like it's competing for attention. I like the contrast between the two. One's business casual, the other's a full-on treat yourself. Later on, I'll also be repurposing some of the office building assets into hotels as well, since a lot of those already have that tall, modern look you'd expect from a high-rise hotel. And with a little branding magic through right everywhere, they fit right in and help fill out the area without feeling repetitive. Swapping and rebranding buildings like this really helps break up the skyline a bit, and in my opinion, it really helps keep the town look like it had more of a natural growth. with the majority of the buildings now plopped in, it's time to go back and detail everything up. For this pass, I'm keeping it fairly simple, mostly landscaping, greenery, and filler details. Nothing too over the top, but I can't just leave it sitting there looking barren either. So this is one of those moments where I zoom around, add in the polish, and let the area breathe a little bit. It's not the most exciting part of the build, however it is always a pretty satisfying portion, but it's definitely one of those moments where you just need those finishing touches to really pull everything together. So sit back and enjoy the time lapse, and we'll pick things back up here shortly. and now it's time to get the last skybridge built out, connecting the rail station directly into the town itself. I'm using the same techniques we've used in earlier episodes of the series for the other bridges, keeping everything as one cohesive and consistent system instead of just a bunch of random walkways. And as always, I tried to mirror SeaTac's real rail station bridges as closely as possible. It's not overly complicated, and it's one of those details that really ties the project together, making it look like the station and town were designed to connect from the start instead of just gluing them together after the fact, which ironically is exactly what I'm doing. Next up, I'm adding in some of the hotel and business signs, and getting them placed and illuminated to give this area more life at night. The process is basically the same as the techniques that I've used in earlier videos in the series, but this time I'm taking it a step further with a formula setup that lets the signs automatically switch on after dark. Sully actually has a really solid tutorial on how to do this, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you want to try it out for yourself. Just a heads up though, formulas can affect performance. I think it's depending on your rig, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. Personally, I haven't noticed any issues on my end yet, but it's one of those your mileage may vary situations. That said, I do think it's worth it. The end result is just too good. Seeing those signs flicker to life at night makes the airport surroundings feel much more dynamic and believable. It's a small trick, but one that makes such a big impact. One of the big things I wanted to add was some illuminated lighting around the main airport buildings. For this, I'm using the Garden Lighting Pack by Source Design. It's such a great mod. It lets you plop down little garden style lights in different colors, and when you place them close together, you get this awesome ambient neon glow. I absolutely love the look, and it really helps the airport stand out at night and gives it so much more personality. This pack is on Sully's Discord as well if you want to check them out. After that, I'll be adding in some billboards and custom movie ad posters I've been working on, plus finishing up the Nvidia building to round out that part of the commercial and office area. From there, we're into the home stretch, filling in and detailing a little bit of the small industrial area nearby, and adding some low rent housing to complete the scene and make the airport surroundings feel more grounded. So now it's time to revisit this industrial area that I added earlier near the town. Originally, I just dropped it in to help fill some of the area's work demand, but now it's time to redo it a bit more properly. I started by reworking the road layout so everything makes a little bit more sense and flows much better. Then I added in a couple of signature buildings to give the area a bit more variety and make it feel like more than just a few rows of generic factories. Now to detail it up a little bit, I leaned on Real Vision to get some extra textures in, which really helps the space feel a bit more real. And since I didn't want this section to overwhelm the nearby town, I kept things on the cleaner side of the buildings with the clean industrial zones by Mamansi. It's still an industrial hub after all, but hopefully with a bit more polished and realistic look that complements the rest of the build instead of just a space filler. And now for the final build portion of this episode, we're going to fill in the last bit of space with some low rent housing and a few extra buildings to round things out. Absolutely nothing fancy, but it helps balance the area and sells the vibe of a real community that grew alongside the airport. Now, one thing I don't really love about this process though, is how the game handles the elevation. Buildings tend to just auto flatten everything and it can create some really awkward terrain. So to smooth it out, I'm going heavily on the trees and landscaping to cover the rough edges and make the whole area feel just a bit more natural. Not really a huge addition, but these filler spots are so important for tying everything together, and once it's in place, the airport, the town, and the surrounding areas finally feel done in my eyes. For now at least. that, we've reached the end of this build. You know, looking back at everything we've put together, it's pretty wild to see just how far it's come. We started with the basics, just runways and terminals, and piece by piece, layer by layer, it's turned into something that feels like a living, breathing part of this city. We've got the runways and taxiways detailed out with markings and lighting, the train station and skybridges connecting directly into the terminals, the toll booths and signage making the infrastructure feel believable, and of course the cargo hub and rental car lots that add a ton of functionality and realism. On top of that, we built a whole town next to the airport complete with hotels, services, industry, and even little touches like cell phone lots, billboards, custom lighting. Every one of those details adds up, and together, it creates something that I'm genuinely proud of. Now I'll be honest, no build is ever perfect, there are always small tweaks or things I'd love to polish more on, and this is no exception. But that's part of the fun, learning new tricks as you go, trying out different mods and assets, and slowly shaping everything until it clicks. For me, the best part has been watching this airport evolve from a rough idea into a finished centerpiece for the city. I also want to take a moment to say a genuine thank you. The support you've shown throughout the series has been amazing, from the likes to the comments to the feedback and ideas that I got along the way, from various discords and DMs, a lot of that actually influenced parts of the build. Having that kind of back and forth with the community and other creators makes this process way more fun, and I really appreciate every bit of it. Now, while this is the finale of the airport itself, it's not the end of the journey. There are plenty more projects and builds I want to tackle in City Skylines too, and this airport will keep playing a big role as the city expands. I plan on making Cascadia County my streaming city in the near future, so if you've got ideas of what you'd like to see next, whether it's new districts, more infrastructure, or even something completely different, let me know down in the comments. The next series on this channel will be a brand new city build. I have an idea and some big aspirations on where I want to take that. I'm currently trying my hand at the map editor, but it's not as easy as I hoped it would be. We'll see where it goes from that part, but I'll be starting it very soon, so please be on the lookout for that. And as always, if you enjoyed the series, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on what's coming next. Your support makes a huge difference and it keeps me driven to keep going at this. So with that, we'll officially call this airport complete. It's been an awesome ride building it, and I'm glad you guys came along for the journey. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.